Okay, welcome to chapter 8, and we are going to start with our textbook. Okay, and we're going to start um, with the communication section. Okay, that's on 224. So again, as we always do, we're just going to follow along chronologically. And so let's take a quick look at comunicación or communication, what we need to know for our Chapter 8 test that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So Chapter 8 deals with clothing and wearing clothes. And it starts off with talking positively about things. So you might want to make a comment, a positive comment on, let's say, an article of clothing. And so please familiarize yourself with these words, okay? And there's a box here uh, moving along. Uh, how do we express if something is awesome? We want to make a positive comment about it. That's great. It's cool. How do we say that? And they give us various terms that are used throughout the Spanish-speaking world, okay? And you can go through these, but bárbaro is used in areas of Central America and in Argentina and Chile, bárbaro. All right. If someone's wearing something and you're really impressed by it, you could say, qué bárbaro. How nice, how awesome. All right. Notice that bárbaro can either be masculine or feminine. If you're talking about an article of clothing like a camisa, a shirt, you might say qué bárbara. If you're talking about, let's say, pants, which are masculine, plural, los pantalones, qué bárbaros. So you would change the gender and the number of the adjective you're using according to what you're referring to, the article of clothing you're referring to. Now, you could also use bien, que bien. No, you wouldn't. Bien is not an adjective, so you don't need to change that with gender or number. Brutal, again, that's used in Puerto Rico. I'm not used to a lot of these words, but if someone's wearing, let's say, a dress, un vestido, and you really like it, you could say, que brutal tu vestido. Chévere is used a lot in Venezuela, in the Caribbean, que chévere. Chido, chida in Mexico, chimba, Colombia, and you can look at the rest of them. Chulo, chula. Most of these are adjectives, so they're going to have a masculine, feminine, and a singular and plural form. Estupendo, stupendous. So somebody is wearing let's say, some zapatos, and you really like them. You could say que estupendos. All right. Fenomenal. Guay is used in Spain. Que guay, how nice. Que padre apparently is used in Mexico, and then pura vida, pura vida. And you would never precede pura vida with a K. Someone's wearing a really nice article of clothing, you could say, los pantalones, pura vida. Okay, so be aware of those. And what if something you want to make a negative comment? Maybe you don't like the clothing. Yeah, you could say, que aburrido, how boring. So someone's wearing a skirt, and you could say, que aburrida tu falda. Falda is a word for skirt. How boring. Or que aburridos tus pantalones. Malo, que malo, negative. Pesado, also. Que pesado tu que pesados tus zapatos. How uh, uh, pesado would mean like obnoxious in a way, your shoes. And pésimo, again, implies something negative. Que pésimos tus zapatos, how ugly, okay? So pésimo, pesado, malo, aburrido, all implies something negative. So make sure you're aware of these adjectives. And this will be on your exam. It's not that difficult, but I just want you to be aware of it. Look here in C. It says las marcas más chéveres. Well, we know that chévere means good or awesome. A marca would be a make or brand. So often you want to know what the make or brand of clothing is, and it's saying the most awesome brands, las marcas más chéveres. Is it a Hollister? Is it an Oscar de la Renta, a famous Dominican designer's piece? Is it from Nike? You know, ¿qué marca es? What is the brand? You might want to look through some of this vocabulary associated with clothing here in Paso Dos, marca de ropa, what brand or make of clothing, website, marca de teléfono, etc. Just read through that stuff. Here's a small section on how would you say excuse me or sorry, excuse me, or pardon me. You can look through these, but oftentimes, if you do need to be excused for something, or you would say con permiso, you know, con permiso, can I enter? Puedo entrar, you know. But there are other ones, disculpa, okay, or disculpe or disculpen. Now, in this case, you're giving a command. As you know, there's various yous we use in Spanish. So disculpa would be excuse me when you're talking to somebody in the to form. Disculpe when you're giving a command in the usted form. And then when you have the plural form, ustedes, if you're asking a bunch of people to excuse you, would be disculpen. Perdón, again, it's kind of like you're saying you're sorry. Perdón, you bump into somebody as you're moving along the sidewalk. Again, you just have one term. You can also use the verb perdonar. Again, if you're using the to form, perdona, you're giving the usted command, it would be perdone, and the plural form, perdonen. And another term you can use, for example, look through these, okay? The general, again, overall term for saying excuse me is con permiso. If you're implying possibly that or disculpa, if you're implying that you're sorry for doing something, then you could use perdón or perdona. Okay, that's what they'd like you to know that. And there's that term lo siento, you can also use that, I'm sorry. Okay, I think that does it with what we need to know for comunicación. So let's go next. And this is, we're at page 228. Please learn your vocabulary. Your vocabulary are generally articles of clothing. So you've all had Spanish before. You've probably seen a lot of this vocabulary. Make sure you know how to say chaqueta, jacket, how you know how to say cap, la gorra, dress, el vestido, collar, necklace. Make sure you know these terms. And if you go to the last page of the unit, you will see all of the clothing vocabulary and also read through this section. But we have los zapatos, shoes, la camisa, shirt, los tenis would be your sneakers, los jeans, pantalones or pantalon pants. What are lentes, glasses, lenses? Make sure you know this vocabulary. Falda, skirt, let's see, collar, necklace. Again, please look at these terms. And there are a bunch of them here. As you see, la corbata is the word for tie. Okay, la blusa, blouse for a woman, camisa, shirt for a man. Traje, the man is wearing a suit, that's a traje. El bolso, there's many ways to say purse. Your book gives us el bolso, purse. Okay. Um, look through these. El abrigo is your overcoat. Please look at these. El uh, collar, right? El pijama, pajamas, el traje de baño. Look through these terms, particularly the ones here, and make sure you're familiar, because you're going to be given images and be asked about various articles of clothing, and you should be able to talk about the clothing. Look at the question down here in vocabulario. ¿Qué llevas para cada ocasión? We use the verb llevar, double L-E-V-A-R. It means to carry, but it also means to wear. So I could say, yo llevo una camiseta con rayas. I'm wearing a t-shirt with stripes. I wear is yo llevo. Just conjugate the verb llevar. Or I could ask you, what are you wearing? ¿Qué llevas? Another verb we use for to mean to wear is usar. ¿Qué usas? What are you wearing? Or what are you using? Yo uso una camisa con rayas. So I'm using yo uso una camiseta con rayas. I am wearing a t-shirt. Okay, so you'll see llevar, usar for wearing. Okay. Um, Let's move on. Here they mention different colors of clothing. Again, colors are adjectives. Adjectives generally follow the nouns they modify. So if I want to say a white t-shirt, I would say una camiseta blanca. And you have to tweak the color and make sure it matches in gender and number with the article of clothing it's referring to. If you're wearing black glasses, you would say los lentes negros, okay? But la camiseta negra, the black t-shirt, I had to tweak the color. Um, you really won't be tested much on that, but it's good to know that. Here's more on vocabulario again. ¿Qué ropa llevas hoy? What clothing are you wearing today? This unit deals with clothing, and a good basic word to know for this unit is ropa. So, ¿qué ropa? What clothing are you wearing today? And then you would say, yo llevo una camisa, or yo uso, okay? Another word for clothing, like an article of clothing, is prenda. Prenda. Okay, so you'll see that in this unit, and you might be asked. So if I ask you, ¿qué prenda usa la mujer? What article of clothing is the woman wearing? You could say, la mujer usa un vestido, or la mujer lleva un vestido. Okay, so prenda is an important word to be aware of in this unit. There are other, so look through the section on clothing, and look through these different sections, go through these, and they'll give you some useful expressions and words you'll need. Let's move on here. For example, here it says, in this box, the verb llevar has several meanings in Spanish. Two of the most common uses are to wear. Okay, la niña lleva un vestido rosado. And there we're using the color pink. And notice how it has to agree in gender and number with vestido, the word it's modifying. And it can also mean to bring or carry. We're not going to be using llevar as to bring or carry. And then again, as I told you earlier, you can use the verb usar to mean to wear. Yo no uso lentes. I don't wear glasses, pero mis padres sí los usan, but my parents do use them or do wear them. Okay. Let's move on here. Okay. So here is take a look again through the vocabulary. They're giving you the different parts of the body, and they might want to know what clothing might you use. For example, with your hands, la mano or las manos, you're going to wear guantes, gloves. Okay. For la cabeza, your head, you might use agora. So but just take a look through the different body parts. It's just basic review. Okay. And let's see. Okay. This is very important. We're still in vocabulario. We're moving along. Please look at this box. ¿Cómo te queda? Queda is the verb quedar is to remain. But in this case, notice it uses the indirect object te. ¿Cómo te queda? How does it remain you? How does it fit you? Now, quedar is going to mean fit. And since we're talking about clothing, you should be able to answer the question how something fits you or somebody else. So let's uh, so that is the verb quedar, but let's take a look at some other verbs they give us here. They kind of jumble things around. I have to get myself used to it. But here's some more clothing language and verbs. The verb to try on, probarse, that is used reflexively and it means to try something on. And notice it's a stem changer. Yo me pruebo la chaqueta. I'm trying on the jacket. Quedar, that's what I wanted to show you, and that's really important. That will be on your test. ¿Cómo te queda la camiseta? How does the camiseta, the t-shirt, fit you? ¿Cómo te queda? Or how does it fit him? ¿Cómo le queda la camiseta a él? ¿Cómo le queda la camiseta a ella? How does it fit her? You're going to see this. And quedar is used with the indirect object pronouns, just like gustar. Okay? So please look through these. Let's look at this example here. It says, los pantalones de mi hermano. So pantalones are pants. You should know the clothing vocabulary. So my brother's pants le quedan mal. So they fit him how? Poorly, bad. Okay. And then it says, están apretados. Apretado means tight. Please look at some of this language. They are tight. Están demasiado means too. We haven't had this word, although you probably had it in prior courses. They are too tight, or just apretados. Están apretados. Let's look at some of these descriptors of clothing. They're going to be on your exam. So ancho means loose. So I could say, la camisa me queda ancha. The shirt is too wide. Okay, it's too loose, too big. Me queda apretada. It's too tight or small. Corto. Me queda corta. It's too short. Me queda grande. It's too big. It's too big. What I could say, the shirt's too large for him. It's too long. I'm sorry for him. Le queda larga. La camisa le queda larga a él. Or it's too small for him. La camisa le queda pequeña. And again, I have to tweak the adjectives to make sure they agree in gender and number with the article of clothing I'm talking about. All right, please look through these. This is a great section. You're gonna see some questions asked about how clothing fits people. Make sure you're familiar with it. Another very important term to use, and it's in this box. You need to know how to say size, and the word for size is la talla with a double L. La talla. It's la talla. It's related to the word tailor in English, which is the cut of clothing. But la talla means size. And now for shoes, we use número. So let's take a look. To talk about a particular size of clothing, use el número to refer to shoe size and la talla to refer to clothing size. So just take a look at some of these. Again, this will appear on your exam. Disculpa, señor. Excuse me, sir. ¿Tiene este zapato and el número 9. Do you have this shoe in size 9? Notice we use número for the size of a shoe. Now watch for clothing. Perdone, señorita, pero quisiera probarme la camisa. I want to try on, probar, it's used reflexively, la camisa en una talla más grande, in a larger size. Or you could just say, yo necesito una talla más grande. Okay? O yo necesito una talla más pequeña. Notice I said pequeña because talla is feminine. And the adjective has to agree in gender with the noun it refers to. Here's some more vocabulary. You just might want to look at it. El desfile de moda is a fashion show. Desfile is like a parade. So a parade of fashion. The word for fashion is moda. Es estar de moda is to be in fashion. Mi camisa está de moda. My shirt is in style or in fashion. De moda, estar de moda is to be in style or to be in fashion. Diseñador is what it looks like. There's the term estar de moda, to be in style. Estar pasado de moda, to be out of style. Okay. And la marca is the brand or brand name. Make sure you're familiar with these terms and articles of clothing. Go through these sections. Okay, now let's move on to estructura. What do we need to know in estructura? Again, review the preterite tense. Just take a look, make sure you can conjugate in it the simple preterite tense. There's some readings here you can do. And then they are going to introduce here IR verbs, IR stem changing verbs that we had way in the beginning of Spanish. So these are stem changing verbs, and in the present tense, they're IR verbs, and the E will go to I in these verbs. And here are the verbs: pedir, to request or ask for; seguir, to follow; servir, to serve; vestir, to clothe or dress. Okay. And they just wanted you to know that these verbs, these IR stem changing verbs, when you conjugate them in the preterite tense, they are irregular in the el form, el ella form, and in the ellos ustedes form. They're irregular. And otherwise, they conjugate in the preterite tense, just as we've learned how to conjugate preterite verbs. We take the stem of the verb and we put on the preterite ending. These are IR verbs, so they will take the IR preterite endings. Please review these, take a look at them, but it's iste, yo, imos, hieron. That's what they all take, but there is a slight wrinkle with these verbs, okay? And what happens with them is in the el and the ella form and the ellos form, look at the stem, for example, of these words: pedir, seguir, servir. It would be ped, seg, serve, vest. Their stem in the el, ella form and the ellos, ustedes form does not have an e in it. The e changes to I. So it becomes pid, sig, sirv, and vist. Only in the LA form, but your endings are your regular preterite endings for IR verbs. Io for el and ella, hieron for ellos or ustedes. It's just the stem for the L and A change. The E goes to I. What about if you have, and there's only two of them, an IR stem changer that has an O in the stem? Again, normally the stem for these in the preterite would be dorm for dormir and mor for morir. But the O goes to U for the L, ella form. For dormir, it changes to durm. And for the ellos ustedes form, it changes to durm, the O goes to U. And for morir, the O goes to U. So it's mur, M-U-R. But the endings, again, are you going to be regular? Please take a look through that. There's not a whole lot on this, but be aware of those changes. Okay, let me see. Here's a section on Hugo Chavez. You'll be asked about him on your exam, so make sure you look through some of these readings. You will have readings on your exam. Okay. All right. Now we have one more area to go to here to get us ready for next week. And so let's jump now to again to estructura or grammar, and we're going to do 8.2. Okay, and this is this will wind everything up for chapter 8. Whenever we relate something like a story in the past in Spanish, we will use the past tense. I went to the store. I was looking for some clothing. We relate it in the past tense, the same in Spanish. And what they're telling you here is in Spanish, we can use two different past tenses to relate a story, to relate a past event. We can use the preterite tense. We all know what it is. It's a simple past. We all know how to form it. And or we can use the imperfect tense. You should be able to conjugate now everything in the imperfect tense. I saw some students that still didn't seem to have a grip on this particular issue, but it's a very simple tense to form the imperfect, but make sure that you can form it. And now make sure you know the difference between the preterite and the imperfect. What do they mean? So whenever I'm giving a past event, I'm going to be using the preterite and the imperfect to relate that past event. You need to know when to use each, okay? And they will give you the rules. If you go through here, there's a reading. Um, but let's look at this actividades analíticas, okay? So let's go through some of this and let's see what's the difference between the preterite and the imperfect and when do I use one or the other? Because on your test, they're going to give you the verb and they're going to say, you put it in the correct tense, preterite or imperfect. So it says, you've seen the imperfect tense used to portray an event as happening over a period of time where the exact starting and ending points don't matter. So the imperfect tense is used when you're not interested in saying when exactly the event started or ended. You're talking about something that was going on continuously in the background. It was going on continuously way back in the future. It didn't necessarily stop. It was a continuous or periodic event. And in English, we would translate this as, for example, I could take the verb to eat. I was eating. They were eating. Talk. I was talking. They were talking. You were talking. Notice how it shows I was or I was. So the thing was going on I don't care when it started or when it ended. It could also mean used to. I used to talk or I used to speak. So these are ongoing actions. Make sure you know and you understand that, okay? Uh, and look at some of the examples here. Okay, now, what about the preterite? The preterite means that it began and it ended, okay? It was completed, okay? So I'm not talking about something I was doing or we were doing or I used to do. We're talking about something that's over. I ate, I saw her, she knocked at the door. I answered the phone. Okay. And so that would be your preterite. So take a look at this. Um, okay. And so let's take a look at number 2 here and just go through these again. And number 2, it says, here's one way to use the preterite and imperfect tenses together, how it can be visualized. So they're talking about let's see, a relationship that Penelope had. So Penelope had a relationship with Javier, and we're going to use the imperfect tense because we're talking about a relationship she was having. So we would say, en el pasado, Penelope tenía una relación con Javier. Notice they show it here as a continuous action going on. So we use the imperfect. We're just describing, we're painting the picture of what was going on. But what happened? Was there an interrupting event? And it could be anything. In this case, salió en la película. Somebody came out in a movie. Okay, they appeared in a movie. So we put that in the preterite tense. Okay, and so let's take a look what it says here. In all cultures, talking about the past is important, whether you're discussing what you had for breakfast or what your ancestors did hundreds of years ago. So it makes sense that languages provide ways to make it easier to convey the details. Many languages are spoken like Spanish and use verb tenses to make it clear whether two actions happened simultaneously or one after the other, or with one action interrupting the other. These are important distinctions. And although all languages can express them in one way, Spanish does it in a particular or concise and helpful way. Okay, so in this case, the Penelope had a relationship, an ongoing relationship, ongoing, so we put it in the imperfect, tenía una relación, but something interrupted it. It was over and done with within the course of that relationship while the relationship continued. And so it would be salió en la película. So it might be she came out, salieron in the movie, or he came out in the movie. There was something that punctuated, and it could be many, many things. While they had a relationship, okay, mientras ellos tenían una relación, we could say ella fue a París. She went to Paris. That's an interrupting event, okay? Or we could say she had a child. Ella tuvo un niño. She had a child. That's an interrupting. So the interrupting event, it's over and done with. We put it in the preterite. So you're going to have some examples on your exam like this. Let's look at some more. The imperfect verb portrays an ongoing action. Again, you'd be using the ia or aba form, the imperfect form, for an ongoing action, while the preterite verb portrays an action that interrupts it, something that happens and is completed. It interrupts it and it's over, while the background action continues on. So look at this. Enrique buscaba una camisa en la tienda. So Enrique was looking for a shirt. It was an ongoing action. He's in the store, and it's not something that's over and done with. That's what he's doing. So we put in the imperfect. Cuando, so you'll often see, Maria Elena lo vio. When Maria Elena saw him. So he's out shopping, imperfect. That's what he's doing. It's an ongoing action. And then she sees him. The interrupting event goes into the preterite. Cuando María Elena lo vio. Preterite. So Enrique buscaba imperfect ongoing. When she sees him, interrupting event, preterite vio. Cuando Pilar vivía. When Pilar used to live or was living in Caracas, we're talking about an ongoing action. She just didn't live there 2 seconds. Vivía, imperfect. She got her first job en Zara. Conseguir means to get. Notice it's in the preterite. It interrupts. Consiguió. She gets her first job at Zara. It's over and done with. She's not constantly getting a job. So since it's not an ongoing action, it's put in the preterite. And let's look at the next one. Fuimos a la playa porque hacía mucho calor. So again, and usually when you talk about the weather in the past, it's going to be in the imperfect because you're describing, you're painting a picture of what it was like that day or at that time. But so the weather is ongoing, but then it says we went to the beach. It's an interrupting event. You're not constantly going to the beach. You just go to the beach. So it's an action that interrupts the ongoing action of the weather that it was that day. So fuimos is in the preterite form. All right, and you can look again at some of these. You can use the imperfect together when both actions are going on simultaneously and you're talking about a past event. Enrique buscaba una camisa en la tienda y hablaba con María Elena. So he was looking for his shirt, and while he was looking for his shirt, he was also talking to Maria Elena. They'll both go on in the imperfect tense because they're going on simultaneously. Um, Cuando Pilar vivía en Caracas, when Pilar was living in Caracas, she was working in Zara. So again, these were ongoing actions. We're painting a picture of what she was doing in the past. She was living in Caracas while she was living, or when she was living in Caracas, it was ongoing action. She also was working at Zara. We're not saying she got a job at Zara. That would be in the preterite because it's over and done with. It would interrupt. This is going on simultaneously. Okay, and take a look at some of this. And finally, look at number 4. When both verbs in a sentence are in the preterite, it means that both events were completed, usually one after the other. So they're in a sequence. So we'll have some of these where we'll have a little sequence. In this case, both actions are over and done with. We're not painting a picture on what was going on. So Enrique buscó una camisa y luego habló con María. So Enrique looked for a shirt and then he spoke with Maria. Just a factual statement that's over and done with. Pilar fue a Caracas y trabajó en Zara. Pilar went to Caracas and she worked at Zara. So you're going to have some questions like this. These would both be in the preterite. Okay. So make sure you know your articles of clothing. You know those clothing terms. Make sure you understand this distinction between the imperfect and the preterite. The preterite is used when you have an interrupting event or events in sequence that are over and done with, preterite. When you're just painting a picture and telling what was going on or what the person used to do, an ongoing action, you put those in the imperfect and make sure you can conjugate in the imperfect. Thank you.